And there we are. We're underway. Hi, everybody. You all know, well, there's a couple of new people here. I'm Tom Garrison. Over on my left is Arthur Moorhead. He's the co-host. We've both been doing this for well over 20 years. So we're going to show you some of our help. After all, that's exactly what our group does, is help. I had to actually edit that in our welcome message. I thought that would be good so people understand better that the group is here to help and provide specific information. And I see some people are still coming in, but that's good. We're just getting started, folks. So get your pencils out and your questions out. I had a few questions. But I want to ask first the people, especially the new people, what do you feel? What do you know about your images in your site? And everybody should know that I have not muted anybody, so you're free to join in because there's just a few of us today. Nicole, Regina, Larry, Lakeisha, Kevin, any input about images? Or you just want to get started and just hear me yap? I'm actually wanting to hear from you guys.
Smaller the file size, the better loading.
File size?
Yeah.
Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. So if
Yes.
you can shrink them down or even use WebP format, that works.
Yes.
Works well, sorry. It also, I know it also decreases or increases your loading time. So the quicker they load, the better. And what else? Programming wise, it's a real pain trying to convert whatever users are uploading into a format that's usable for, or it's more optimal for you to be downloading. So that's what my struggle is.
Okay, and correct. And Avant, you're here to learn about sizing for images, and that's a big part of what we're going to go through. I created something that's just absolutely rudimentary, but I wanted everybody to see how images can be separated so you can literally see what an image is doing as far as your page speed, load time. What I'm going to show you is a hand-coded HTML page that is just images. It's 9 pages we're going to go through to see the results. But the idea is to get the content management system, which is either WordPress, Joomla, or whatever else anybody uses, get that out of the way. Get the web design software out of the way. So you don't have any page builder in it either. Nothing is there but raw code. That is to show you more specifically what the speed is, because a lot of times you're battling the page builder that you've got. And Kevin, that's part, and Avant, that's part of it, everybody. Part of what slows down the site is the page builder. And with WordPress, because there are so many plugins that you can get, there's nothing that says this one is the best except the name on it from the company says we are the best, but you don't know. A web developer who's been around for a long time and who knows WordPress inside and out, which I can then defer to Arthur, he'll say, this is for what you're trying to do, this particular plugin of all those that are similar, this one's a better one because it's made well, excuse me, and it doesn't interfere like a lot of the plugins do. Just because the plugin works doesn't mean it's coded well enough. And what I mean coded well enough, there are plugins that slow down a site and there are plugins that don't affect the performance at all. You always want to try to see if you can get the one that does not affect your performance, unless it's helping. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen here. And I'm going to go over to, hopefully this is incognito that I'm showing, but maybe not. Arthur is the black, are you seeing the black top?
I'm seeing the milk cow or the cows.
Yeah. Oh, here's the right one. That's Chrome, and here is incognito. Same thing. So that's what we're going to do, is look at pictures of cows. Now, what I did with this, and so everybody can see, this is the only code in the page. So there's nothing to interfere. We're talking about images. So you're going to get a real bird's eye view of exactly what an image can do to this page. Now, since we know there's nothing else interfering, it's just the image. It's huge, 4895 by 3267. Now, there are a lot of people who are going to say, yeah, but I would never use one that big. Arthur, how many times have you seen a developer use an image this size or similar? Sue Ellen, how many times have you seen developers do that? Robert, they do it all the time. And you as the site owner have no idea. But just that image on this page, and it got a 74. And we can test it again to see, it might get 1 or 2 points in between, but it's making the page a pig as far as the performance. Now, imagine if you had this image and 4 others similar in size, because that's the way your developer developed your site. I'm actually surprised it got a 75, but remember, folks, you would never get a 75 with an image that size because there is no other code in the page. You have to remember that your image, a huge image, along with all the code and the page builder stuff, is adding to the slowdown. So we're trying to make sure that you don't do that. All right, so the next page, it's still a big image, but it's actually a little smaller, almost half of what the other one was, and yet it's only a 2% savings. If you look down here at the bottom in this text, last time I checked it, it was 72%. Not a huge savings. So we know that you're on the right road to saving. What's the right size? Even this one's not great. It's got a 96 performance for the load time at 1000 by 668. Questions so far? Now, I know there's some people who are specifically looking for size images. Avant, do you have questions on this so far?
Yes. How do you determine your image size? Like when you're in an app, you're like, okay, this is the size, this is the image I have, but I don't know how big it is.
Okay.
Is it the right click on the image and then there's some kind of
Good
information that shows you how big it is?
If you're working, I know you're talking about doing the images yourself.
Yes.
Okay. So let's just take a look. And here are some images. So you can go to any one of them and you can hold your mouse over it and it shows you it's 324 square and it's 43 kilobytes in weight. Now, I try to say weight as compared to dimensions because there are two things. A lot of times people say, what size is the image? Depending on the person, that can mean what are the dimensions or what is the weight of the image? And I like to differentiate. They both are extremely important. So you can see by just holding your mouse over an image what the size is and what the weight is. And then you can right click and you can do more. But the idea is that you're just holding the mouse over an image. I'm going to try to show you some more.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And it can even go into the images here that I've used in this test, 960 by 640, and it's 269. And we're going to get to that image in just a minute. So once you've seen that's what the size is, you're trying to get it smaller, not necessarily just in dimensions, but in the weight.
Okay.
I'm going to say that, and see if you agree with this, Arthur. I'm going to say that weight has more of an impact than dimensions in an image. And I think I'm going to
Yeah.
prove it by continuing with this test page.
Yeah, I think so too, because you can take the same size image and convert it to a WebP, and you get like a 2 megabyte pixel or 2 megabyte image, and convert it to WebP and bring it down to 400 kilobytes.
Yeah. And I agree. The dimensions mean something, but it's really the weight of that image that you're trying to drop. Now, here's something before we continue to get into more about the larger size images. Here's as an example of something that you can do, and I push this a lot in many classes. If you need a large image in the page, use a thumbnail to get to it. This page loaded at 100%. It's got a 500 pixel image, and it's got 4 other really small, and it loaded at, we'll even inspect it and do it again. So if I got 100 out of this, that would be nice if you could say, yeah, I got the same thing, because you use a bunch of smaller images that you can click on, and I'll show you that in a second. As soon as we get the score here. So there's 100. Well, that's darn good for this, the number of images, because these are not compressed. They're just sized. And I've used all JPEGs in this entire presentation. And like Arthur was saying, if you drop it to a WebP instead, you'll even speed it up more. Now, I will add that as you get into a smaller image, you have to test which of 3 types of images are going to load fastest. In other words, you can make a WebP, make a JPEG, and make a PNG, all the same size. Which one has the lightest weight? Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, what do you think about AVIF? I found that to be even smaller than WebP with JPEGs.
I've seen it around, but I have not messed with it. And it could be how many of the browsers are accepting that format.
All of them except Edge right now.
Pardon? All of them, you said?
All of them except Edge.
Oh, not that anybody uses Edge, but there are a few. That's interesting. I have to make a note on that one, because
But you have to use a code snippet to be using PHP 8.1 to get it to work on WordPress.
it's interesting that you mentioned that. I'm always looking for stuff that is smaller. Of course, I always have to think about who's in the group listening too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a bunch of people all of a sudden said, what did he just say? So expand on what you were saying, Robert, so that the rest of the group understands what you mean.
Yeah, WordPress doesn't natively use it, so that's why you don't see it that much. But there's a code snippet you can get to allow it to be brought into the media library for WordPress, and you have to be using at least PHP 8.1 to get it to work on WordPress.
That's also something that's difficult. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are still working on 7.5 right now, because nobody's taking care of their site for them. Nobody that is concerned about it, I should say. So 8.1, which is, I don't know that they have secured the next one up yet. I think 8.1 is the highest you can get right now.
And they have 8.2.
Is 8.2 out already?
I think it came out in December.
Oh, okay. And I would say that there are probably 4 people here who understand what we're talking about, and the rest of the people are scratching their head going, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. PHP is the code that's used in your site along with HTML. It's all gobbledygook that you have no idea. And there's settings for your server that say use the most current version. And a lot of people are not. If you're using the most current version, then what Robert is talking about will work. So we'll kind of keep that as on the back burner and say, okay, that's something to consider, but we're going to move forward and see what we can do with what you have now, which is one of the reasons why I used all the JPEGs. And I did use big ones in the pop-ups. You can see this is that 48.95 again, and it came right up. The idea is you can use big images. Just know how to use them so it doesn't slow down the page. Once the person's in the page is loaded really fast. Now you can use your pop-up. So click, use light. You can use a plugin that will allow you to create similar or specifically a gallery, and you can pop up any image that you want. That one's 1,000 and this one's a small one, so they come up faster. And of course, the smaller the image size, the faster it's going to come up. But using this format for any page where you have pictures that you really want people to see a larger one, use this method. Make a small image and let people click on it to see the larger one. Okay, let's move on. And of course, that page, like I said, got 100%. And this is what I was talking about. You could use these images in a gallery setting. Now, this page got a 99% because I had not compressed these pictures yet. They're just reduced in size, but there's a lot of them and it's still got a 99. That's acceptable. There's the image full size. So it's not like I'm using little pictures and expecting people to get a magnifying glass out. Just click on the thing. Bang, there it is. And it will resize properly for mobile devices. All of this talk is, why are we doing this? So mobile devices can get into your site. Because if they can't, or it takes too long for the pages to load, they just leave. Doesn't make any difference how good your SEO is on the site. But part of SEO is exactly what we're showing you now. If your site can't perform, you're not doing the job right with SEO. So if you're getting into a header, we talked about this before. If you have a header image, that doesn't mean that's going to slow down the page. If you look at the text right below that header, it got a 99%, and I did not optimize that header page, that header image. 99% with only the header in the page. So you can have a large image in the page, but you need to be careful about where it is and how you put it in. These are just typical JPEGs that you're going to find in whatever website. People have that many pictures. So with those, we got a 71 because they're not optimized at all. They're just plopped in there. That's not what you want to do. So we've had the question already about what size to make it. Well, you already see that these images are 500 pixels wide. And it's very typical to have 9, 10, 15 pictures on one page in a website. Well, I've got 9 here, and it has slowed down the page significantly. We're down to 71. With this, just the header image, it's 100. So you're seeing exactly what is happening with your site because of your images. So now if I take those images, oh, so Ellen, go ahead.
Well, I just think it's really important for your customer. I mean, if they're looking, and we've already talked about how important mobile is, there's no reason to have 3 500 pixel wide images on a page because they're not going to be side by side anyway. You're going to get one at a time as they scroll. And how many are they going to go? So how many pictures make sense if you're dealing with mobile customers?
Yes. And we know from Google statistics that they have tested and said 70% or maybe even more people are the ones who are using mobile devices in their searches.
Right.
That's saying 70% of what could be your traffic would be mobile. So if you're not gearing yourself to that, then you're in trouble. Go ahead.
Well, and how many times are they going to scroll? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
they've got research on that too. If you've got
Yeah.
15 of these images on here, they're not going to go through all of them. So they're just causing you trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is no advantage to having a tremendous number of large images on your page. The only thing you're doing is sitting back with a desktop on a site like that and going, isn't that pretty? Well, you can have pretty, or you can sell your product or service, whatever it is. But if you're putting those images in there, those huge images, you're basically saying, yeah, I don't care if I make any money today or tomorrow or the next day. And I don't think there's a person here that really feels that way. Avant, does that sound like we're getting close to what you're talking about as far as what size should they be?
Yes, yes.
And when I click now onto page 7, these have been compressed. It looks exactly the same as page 6, but I compressed them. Now I got 100% for the header itself, nothing else in the page. But after loading the other images, even compressed, I got a 72. So it dropped it significantly because even though the images have been compressed, they're still large. So the idea is that if you, and just like Sue Ellen was saying, I've got these things laid out next to each other. You're not doing that, but it doesn't make any difference where they appear on the page. It matters that they appear. So if you have these large images, you've got to do something about it. And you can see this one, the header still got 100%. And now, because I've reduced it even more, I've got the same images on the page and I got an 89% mobile page speed. Now you're getting into the size that, okay, you can have that many, but is that still the right size? And I want to see if we can get a different or the same number. Because a lot of times when you do, if you do several different tests, there you go, 84. So 84 wasn't as good as I did it the first time, but you can understand that by reducing the size of those images, that helps dramatically. But we still need to do more work. And this is right back to where you are with your website going, okay, I made that much headway, but it's still not enough. If you can hit an 89 consistently, yeah, that would be great. With the pages consistent or compressed and the images compressed and resized in a gallery setting, again, 100% with just the header and a 96 with all the images below. Yeah, but they're too small, really. They're not. You can still have huge images. It's how you deliver them. And that's what everything is about. And you're thinking, well, wait, I want to have it fairly good size because I want people to see it immediately. You're on a mobile phone. It's already a tiny little image, no matter what size you used in the first place. So if you create something like this gallery, you've gone, okay, so I've got some small pictures I can click on. Oh, that is a nice picture. That's all you wanted people to do. Questions? Avant, does that get you close to what your question was originally?
Yes, yes. And I'm glad that you're mentioning the use of a mobile phone, which most people are going to be on when they're looking at your site. So
Yes.
yes, thank you.
And that's exactly what we are trying to do with everything. It's desktop doesn't matter. You can do anything you want with a desktop and it'll load fast. You can have as many big pictures as you want. But they aren't the ones that are most of the traffic coming to your pages. You want to get these mobile devices in there. There you go, 95. For this huge image at top and these 9 images that are little tiny, these thumbnails. But I got a 95 and I can still show you huge images. More questions? I know that there are more questions. Comments? What size image? Go ahead.
I want to mention that with WordPress gallery plugins, they automatically will create the thumbnail for when you load it up. And if you're using like what you're pointing out here on an individual basis, then yeah, you know, a smaller image will pop up the bigger image. But we also have to take into context that we have to compress the images to get
Yep.
them down, you know, inside. I'm sure you're going to get to that next. So
Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, do you find if that lazy loading helps any?
Yes.
lazy loading, yeah, lazy loading does help, but it depends on where it's at.
Yeah.
If you're lazy loading in the hero section, that's not a good idea.
No. If you were to think of this huge image that I've got here, instead of a header being the hero, because basically it is in a hero section. You've got some stuff up above in the menu, and then you have the image. You could consider that the hero section. That's a pretty big one to have in the page. And again, I'm saying if you had one large image, that's not so bad. If it were me though, and I was creating this on somebody's site, I would still reduce the height of this image because it's still too big. I'm always trying to get 100%. Yes, this got 100%, but I know there are going to be more images. So I would still reduce this. And maybe a lot of people are thinking that they're going to need a huge image at the top of their page, and that's fine. We got some stuff here in the chat. Let me go through here for a second. Okay, Regina is talking about high quality pictures. Yep, get that out of your head. Regina, you got to come online. Now this is for you and it's for everybody else. There's a difference between an image and an image. Can you unmute yourself there, Regina? Okay.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is, I wanted to make sure that you understand this, Regina.
Yeah, that's
You-
something that I'm having a hard time mastering is how do I get the pictures, make sure they're the right size so they are effective even in lower quality, slow internet.
Throw them out. And you're looking at me going, what? That Ernest? Yep. Ernest, you got a problem with your mic there. Regina, high quality means nothing on the internet, and I'll tell you why. So don't close your ears. Most people really want to do that, especially photographers have a hard time hearing me say that. A
That's okay.
browser, any browser, whether it's Firefox, Chrome, Edge, anything else, they're only capable of displaying 72 DPI.
Okay.
So if you are attempting to get a 300 DPI into your website, stop it.
Yep.
It won't happen. You will go in, you'll get this high quality image into the page, and it will not only slow the page down, but you cannot tell the difference between a 72 DPI and a 300 DPI in your browser.
Okay.
You can't. So don't worry about it being a high quality. Take your image that you have at a 72 DPI and work with that one, because if you're working with a 300 DPI and compressing it and to resize it and all that, you're still a heavier image than it would have been at 72 DPI, and you cannot visually see the difference.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Regina?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so don't worry about high quality images. It's not possible.
Okay.
You just want to make sure that the image that you use is nice looking, which I've done with
Yes.
these. And you can't tell me that that's not a 300 DPI. It's not, but if you put a 300 DPI next to it, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference on a browser.
Okay.
This is a 72 DPI JPG. That's it.
Yes.
Daunting
All
picture. I
right.
love that picture. I hope everybody else likes that.
Same.
You're welcome.
Yes,
And let's
thank you.
see. Nicole, should be a certain size image per page. No. Nicole, are you still with us? Where are you? Oh, Nicole isn't here. Nicole left. Okay, there you go. So no, I'm not saying that anyway. Code snippet for AVIF files in WordPress. So you do have to mess around with some images. What's the, not to get too technical, but Robert, what's the difference in page speed between a JPEG, PNG, and WebP compared to the AVIF?
No, that's what I've been trying to figure out, is the page speed. I know the size is quite a bit different. In some cases, it's about half the size of a WebP, but the
And
looks the same.
have you tested what size images have you tested?
I've tested images around 10 to 20K.
Yeah, that's a pretty small image though.
Yeah, it really makes them small. It's
And when you get down to,
amazing.
I have found, and you guys, Robert or Arthur, even Sue Ellen, feel free to jump in. What I have found is that the smaller you get, to a certain extent, when you get down into somewhere around 200 wide with a WebP, now you're in that situation where is WebP lighter than a PNG or JPG? And I have found oftentimes that the JPG is actually lighter than the WebP at that size. So when you get smaller, WebP starts, or I should say that differently, it stops losing the lightweight capability. I don't know the specifics as to why, but instead of trying to figure that out, I just go, okay, I'm just looking for a light image. So I'm going to make it in 3 different formats, and I'm going to grab the one that's lightest.
Yeah,
So
I found something
I do the
similar.
same thing with AVIF.
Yeah, I found something similar. The AVIF seem to work very well in the JPEGs if you're going from that to an AVIF, but the PNGs, it actually comes out a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I would say that I'm not a photographer, so I can't tell you that. And I don't know how much more that Arthur knows, because you've been into some photography. If you can give us some idea as to what's going on with the different formats, to be able to say, yes, when you reach this point, because this format does blah, blah, blah. There's something in there. I don't know. I have no idea how to explain that. Do you, Arthur? That's WebP is the newest one, but yet when you get down to a smaller image, it doesn't perform better than a PNG or JPEG. And I don't know why. That's kind of the is of our business. There's a lot of stuff that it gets really technical, but it's you come to some stuff and you just shrug your shoulders, go, I don't know. I'm just going to use what I know is the best. And since you can't tell the difference if you put a PNG, WebP, JPEG, or probably an AVIF, you put them all together in a browser, you probably can't tell the difference in quality. They're all exact same dimensions. Nicole, or is text so? Oh, Nicole's asking about text, and on the pages that I put in here, text doesn't mean a thing. You can put as much text on a page as you want, and you're not going to slow it down. which is why I didn't put it, other than a little bit in the first couple of pages, I stated right here. You can have some text, doesn't take up any room, doesn't cause any problems, doesn't slow it down. So write to your heart's content. And of course, that's what Google wants to see on the page anyway, not pictures. Regina's got that. Okay, so we got that part. Well, you know, I took care of chat. Okay, what other questions we have? Because I know that there are still performance stuff that we're dealing with. I just think that the best thing that people can be doing is some method. It doesn't have to, these are 100 pixels wide. You could go a little bit larger, maybe 150, so that you can see a bit more of the picture before you click on it. I just happen to choose 100 to think that's simple. Robert, go ahead.
I was going to ask, since you brought up text, I've noticed something probably I've seen in my performance things is the bringing in of Google Fonts.
Yes.
The difference of hosting your font locally versus bringing it in from somewhere else.
Now, I'm treading carefully because I'm about to get hit with all you guys. I don't use them if I don't have to. I don't use, and if mostly I develop in Joomla, but I have developed literally hundreds of WordPress sites. And I know that usually a page builder will go for Google Fonts. And in the sites that I've seen, whether I developed them or not, sites that I've looked at, I don't really see that much change in the font from just using Helvetica or Arial. And quite frankly, since 2000, I have watched and seen over the years the two default fonts that appear the best on a page are the Helvetica and Arial. When you get into all those other fonts, they start becoming, depending on the letter, it's difficult to differentiate between an L and an I, depending on the font. But if you're using Helvetica or Arial, it's not. They're very, this is it. And yet Helvetica is, actually I read something a couple of years ago, Helvetica is on its way out just because so many people have used it so much. The point is, I don't like bringing in the text fonts, bringing in different fonts from someplace. Why not use default font that's on somebody's computer? So if you're not specifying a specific font, then it's going to use whatever their default is that they like on their computer. But I agree with you that when there are web builders and even or web page builders and developers who like to bring in that Google font, yeah, that can be something that'll slow down the site. That's back to a page builder. Thoughts on that, Arthur? I see your wheel spinning.
Well, a lot of times you can self-host the fonts too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it really depends on the page builder and how it's set up. You know, I mean, I use Elementary, so I don't have a problem with the fonts, but I also use a plugin that's called, and I can't think the name of it, Optimize Google Fonts, and it'll actually load the fonts on your site rather than feed it from the link. You know, so I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, the only way to really get away from the external serving of fonts is just to you upload them onto your server, up onto your website, and use it that way. You know, but then if you do that, you really don't have a lot of options. So it just, you know, depends on the user. I mean, there's caching plugins that'll optimize that. You know, that'll help with that. I mean, WordPress has pretty much figured out everything on how to make it work. But yes, if you're bringing fonts from a link and external links, yes, it will slow it down a bit. But it really depends on how you optimize the website too. You can optimize it where it don't affect it.
And I think that that's, even though that is the secret, it's difficult for a lot of people who either don't have a qualified developer or they don't have a developer at all. So they're trying to do it on their own, which is part of where I usually try to come with our meetings, so that if you're taking care of your own website, you understand what we're talking about, so you can do it yourself. So this is the time for anybody who is doing their own work to pipe it and say, what are you guys talking about? If you're not clear, we're happy to tell you exactly how to do stuff. Regina, I think you may have had a question about the text. Is that correct?
Sort of. I get confused about which one to use, but I try to use the ones that are just easy for maybe most people to read the best that I can. I'm just not sure about using Google. I use Canva and some other programs. I usually use Adobe. I try to keep it simple so most people can read it and understand it the best they can.
Regina, do you work on your site yourself, or do you have a developer?
I actually, my online store is through a marketplace,
Okay,
but I also have a WordPress website that I do mostly take care of. I just don't have the budget to have it hosted right now. So this is helpful for that too, when I do start it up again.
so you say you use Canva and some other things. Do you import the font that they're using?
Yes, I can.
And I'm just making sure that that's clear so that everybody understands. Unless you have a font available on the server or some method of going to get that text, that font, code that's going out to get that code, that font, and bring it to your site, then what you're using is default font, which means whatever somebody uses on their own computer as their default font. Did I say that well? Did everybody understand that?
Yes, yep.
So if you're, now I know a lot of times people will type something up in like a Word program or Canva or something, and then just take that and copy it over to their website. Well, you lose the font type as soon as you take that text, because
Okay.
that copying that text is simply going to paste raw code for that text. And it isn't in your website unless you have specified somehow to get that font into your site. Now, Christine was new, so I'm going to ask if that made any sense at all. Christine? Looks like your screen's a little bit frozen. You with us, Christine? Did that make sense? She's having computer problems.
Yes, yeah.
Well, at
Yes,
any rate,
makes sense.
the idea is that, you know, if you're specifying a font, you got to specify it in your CSS. And if that's done, then it has to be available. So even if you said, well, this is what I want to use, if it's not on somebody's computer, they won't be able to see it unless you're importing that font. And the whole point that I was trying to make, it really doesn't make any difference how much text that you have on the page as far as slowing down the page. I could go in and we could test that too, but you can do it on your own. Just put a ton of gobbledygook text on the page and do a page speed performance test on it. Do it when the page is blank, do it with the text on there, and you watch, and you'll see it really doesn't have an effect. That's what computers are designed to do. is just read the text, and they do it very fast. The things that slow pages down are pictures and code from other programs.
Yeah, certain types of font does take longer to load though.
Hmm,
You know,
That's
if you
true,
get
too.
in-
Yeah.
If you get into typeset, you know,
Yeah.
like, you know, a lot of the fonts that are in script form, you
Mhm.
know, those take longer to load. But just a basic standard text, you know, like Thomas was talking about, you know, doesn't really matter how much text you have on a page. But it's just the style of the text that will affect how it loads.
When you get into the styling, that's what makes that difference. And even if you're using a default font, it's going to be a lot faster because people already have it on their computer. I've watched over the years, there's only two that I know of right now. There might be a third font that's default on Macs and PCs, pretty much any computer. And that's Helvetica and Arial.
Robato's common too, so.
Yeah, they are really common. They've been around since computers were first started. Christine's trying to come back. So we're here to answer questions. We're here to help you specifically. So if you ask specific questions about your site, issues that you're having, that's what we want to address. Who's got questions? I know you all do. Our meetings are always full of so much good information. It's like, get you spinning.
Yeah, I always
Nobody? Sorry?
thought Canva used Google Fonts. You know, I'm not positive about that, but I don't think Canva uses fonts that are not Google Fonts because of how Canva is used. I mean, I may be wrong about that, but
So Ellen looks like she's got something to say about that. For some reason, you're muted. I don't know why.
Sorry about that.
Oh,
They do have proprietary fonts, and matching those up with Google Fonts can be quite a task. So
Yeah.
if you try and match them up, it can be really difficult. Yeah. So it just depends on what you're doing with it. If you're careful about which fonts you use in Canva, you can make a match.
well, that sounds counterproductive to be able to create a website.
Well, it kind of is. Canva really started as a social media tool. So, and it makes a graphic, basically. That's where they started. So I haven't used their website tool, so I don't know how that fits in.
Regina, have you used Canva quite a bit, or are you just starting?
I started using Canva maybe a year ago or 6 months. I can't remember exactly. I use it for some of my designs and elements sometimes. So it sounds like I have to be careful if I transfer to a website. that
Yeah,
I'm actually building my website store right now.
and that's where a lot of people get into trouble and they don't know it, is because they're trying to do something like creating a different font, using a different font than default, and thinking, well, I have this available to me, so I'll just use that one. Yeah, but nobody else does. So unless you import that and set it up so that your system is using that font and anybody can use it, then they won't see that font. So your hard work to make it look
Right.
however you wanted was all for naught.
Okay.
That's why I usually, I spent the first few years that I was developing thinking, well, I'll try this one, I'll try that. Well, that doesn't work because I can't make it be on somebody's computer. And I did a lot of research, and it comes down to, if the user doesn't have that font on their computer, and you're trying to use it in a website, it isn't going to work. The only way you can is where we started with Robert saying that if you're importing Google fonts or some other fonts, it has to be mechanically, technically done so that you bring in those fonts and assure that anybody using your site can see those fonts.
Thank you.
Christine, did you get things worked out? Seemed like you were having trouble connecting. There you are.
Yeah, yeah, sometimes it just freezes up. I get too many windows and
I see it's kind of,
I needed to eat lunch. I apologize for being late. I was gonna drop in inobtrusively after I had lunch, but then I had technical difficulties, so some for inobtrusive.
so
Sorry.
do you have, did you catch enough of where we are and what we're doing that you were able to make some good notes or questions?
Well, you know, the question I had was, does, yeah, I was in a meeting earlier this morning and they were talking about, you know, is it you that people know, or is it the logo, or is it the website? And I mean, I kind of think it's all of it, but I was dropping in on yours to see what you thought about that. You know, what sells a business best is obviously business to business relationships where you have a good relationship with people and you stay connected and you follow up. You're sincere and in about the product and you the person who invented or created the product as, you know, website design, and those designs have a lot to do with it because they create an impression. So I was hoping at least I can get in there for the Q&A. You know what I mean?
Your connection is bad enough that I'm catching about every third word, but I think that what you're saying is that, is it the design or is it the person doing it? Is that what you're asking? You just cut out again. Looks like you lost connection. Sorry, you're having a heck of a time with that connection. Now it's starting to come back. You have a party favor going off in the background. You want to try your question again?
Oh, sure. How is this? Is this any better?
Yes, much better.
Oh, cool. Well, just give me a thumbs down if you can't hear me. I don't know, we just upgraded our internet, but it's still not. So I was in a meeting this morning, they were talking about, you know, what sells business best? And, you know, it's definitely, I think, business to business relationships, being genuine and sincere and, you know, being consistent so that people trust you. But you also have to believe in your product and in the business that you're marketing or the product that you're marketing. But then the website design and, you know, the quality of the design has a lot to do with it as well, because if people see a website that's not professionally done, they're going to stray away. I was just wondering which one you think is most important, you know?
It really depends on what stage that you're talking about. Overall, yes, as far as the website, it's a reflection of your business. So if you have a piece of garbage website, that's definitely going to be thumbs down for a lot of people going, yeah, I don't think I want to do business with that person. And if you are in a situation where people get a chance to speak to you specifically and not have to worry about your website, then that's what they're going to buy. They're ultimately, they're looking to see who runs this business. It's like our group. Who runs this business? Who runs this group? Arthur and I do. We have a bad attitude. You don't like us, you can go away. We are here to help people and provide specific steps. So we take the time. I'd lay out a lot of information, then I'd field all the questions because people are always saying, well, how do I do blah, blah? And we'll tell you, here's how you do that. instead of a lot of people who are saying, well, it's part of this and this, and talk to your developer, and then they move on to somebody else because they don't want to tell you specifically. Say, hire me and I'll do it for you. And we go from the opposite end. Now tell them how to do it. If they don't want to, then that's fine. We're ready. We're available for hire. There's at least 4 of us in here who do it as for a living. But we're here to be able to provide information and talk amongst ourselves so that you guys benefit. Thanks, Sue Ellen. See you. And they're headed out. But any other questions before we go? Looks like you do need to work on that connection, Christine. I'm not sure what it is. Yeah, that's a tough one. Maybe expecting too much. Maybe it could be just the computer itself and not the your service provider. It's still
I
kind
might have to make windows up. I don't really know. It's usually about 90% is good, but today not so good.
of interesting. Well, I hope you get that worked out. That's got to be irritating.
Yeah, it is.
Well, we actually made it right to the time. Look at that, Arthur, right on time. So if you have any questions, feel free to connect with us, either Arthur or myself. We're here to help. Or you can post in the group, whichever is easiest for you, whichever you prefer. We're always around. Thanks for joining us today. You betcha.
Thank you.
You take care. Thanks, Robert. We'll see you
Yeah,
later.
thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.